Well, Sharon, welcome back for our second Zoomside chat. It's so good to have you back. And Sharon, for those who don't know you, you are an executive coach and you are a mentor to so many people, including myself. So I appreciate having you in my life and having this conversation at this very interesting time. So thank you for being
Well,
here.
thank you for inviting me, Krishna. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope you're delighted because we're going to talk about your favorite topic, relationships.
Relationship. It probably is my favorite topic. I really think it's so rich. Yeah. So what do you want to talk about relationships?
Well, everything you know about in 30 minutes or
Oh, okay.
less. No, I think it's our perspectives. I think everybody has their view about relationships, right? I think words matter for everybody. What that word means could be different. So I want to know what it means to you because we've never really talked about relationships.
Well, sure. So let me start by just saying a tiny bit about how important I think relationships are. And by this I mean relationships with people. And um, you're probably aware of the Harvard longitudinal
Yeah.
adult development study.
The 80-year one or something
Yeah,
like that?
80,
Okay.
80 years. Yeah. And to me, this is one of the places where this showed up so clearly that, that the report after 75 years said um, that, that relationships are messy and they're complicated, and that the people who have good relationships are healthier and happier because of it than any other variable.
Wow.
So, for health and happiness, good relationships are the key.
Hmm. But I like the way you juxtapose them, right? Because you talk about how I'll give you a second to do that. Yeah,
Just muted it, sorry.
no worries. This is a chat, right? This is not a
This
show.
is a chat, yeah.
So I like the juxtaposition, and I want you to repeat that. They are difficult. What was it? First word was difficult,
They're messy
messy,
and they're complicated.
complicated. And usually, messy and complicated are negative words.
Yeah,
However, in spite of that, the consequences are extremely positive.
right, right. Which
Wow.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think the message is, even if there's some difficulty involved, it's worth figuring out
Got it.
how to have really uh, good relationships. That
But then, Sharon, that goes against human nature. I mean, we avoid everything that's unpleasant.
yeah, but we get so much benefit from the relationships that a lot of times it's worth the work. But you bring up an issue that's very important, which is that we mess up a lot of relationships. I mean, we don't know how to do it a lot of the times. I mean, that's what I think, is that people find themselves in a relationship at work, at home, with a neighbor, and
Mm.
they're at odds, and they don't know how it got there, and they don't know how to get out of it. Right?
Wow, those are three beautiful case studies, right? Relationship
Yeah.
at home, relationship at work, and especially now with neighbors as
Yeah.
well. Given the
Yeah.
polarization of our society right now, I
Right.
think so. Yeah, I would love to hear what your latest thinking is on how to get out of a bad situation, or because yes, you're absolutely right. Because everything is insidious, it happens over time, and rarely does it start with an explosion. Sometimes it does, but
Yeah.
what happens is it deteriorates over time, and the insidious nature of it is what makes us not ever think of what the cause was. We may
Right.
correlate it to the most recent event and
Right.
attribute blame to that event when really this has been going on. And I jokingly say, when it comes to my work, which is making choices, I say humans take so much time to make big decisions in life, who you marry and so on. You may date for 3 years or date 10 people or whatever else. But I say, while that decision is important, wake up every morning and frown at that person and let's see how it turns out.
That's really good. Yeah, yeah. Well, that actually gets at the heart of what I think is important to know about relationships.
Mm,
And that is that even more important than your behavior is something underneath that, which is, I mean, you can use different words to describe it. Sometimes I call it the condition of your heart. It's
mm,
like whether your heart is at war or at
mm,
peace. And
mm,
when you wake up with a frown on your face and you look at your partner with that frown, you've started the day with a heart at war, actually.
mm, mhm.
And so, almost no matter what you say to that person, they're going to get what they get is that condition that's under it, that way of being, you
Being.
know? Yeah.
Interesting, you said heart. I often use the phrase mind state. How do you distinguish between mind state and heart state? Or are they, is there some overlap or is there a distinction?
I think there's actually a lot of overlap. And that in fact, our minds and hearts work together.
Mm,
I guess the only reason I choose the heart word is that even in a business setting, it feels to me like it has a place that
yes.
people, if you stay in your mind and you're trying to be all the time rational, it's like trying to be in a state of control that's not real.
Correct.
Uh
Beautiful.
huh.
In fact, that's exactly, I use mind state in terms of emotion and also logic, but heart state is much more a feeling state, a state of
Yeah,
being, like, as you said, a state of
yeah,
being, and
yeah,
as opposed to a state of mind.
yeah, yeah. But I think it's very hard to separate them. I
Right.
think they
Right.
really, really go together. Yeah, yeah,
It's interesting, right? When you have overlap, right? We always try to make independent variables when I think everything
right.
has a significant amount of overlap, and that's
Yeah.
probably what makes it more complicated to monitor.
Yes, that's probably true. Right, right. So, there's another thing, and this goes really with your focus on choice, and and that is that I think it's really important to know and acknowledge that I am the only person I can change.
Yes.
That that's the only choice I have is
Hmm.
me.
Yeah.
Now, usually we really want to change other people so badly, right? I mean,
I'm keeping quiet.
yeah, be really quiet here because but a moment, an epiphany comes when we realize that we really can't control even a child,
Yep.
even a 2-year old. Try to control a 2-year old. You can't do it. And so figuring out some way that we can take charge of ourselves and then, I think, really see the humanity in the other person even when they bug us.
Mm, mm,
So we
yeah.
see them as a person. We see them as a person with, hopes and dreams and burdens, just like we are.
Hmm.
And that those hopes and dreams and burdens, even if they're different from ours, they're equally as important.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think this was 87 or 88. I came across this. I was in a support group in Columbia, Tennessee. And for the first time, I heard this statement, a father saying, I love my son, but I hate his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a few minutes probably to just absorb and say, how could he say that? I mean, it was like when you hear it, a statement like that for the first time, you can't even comprehend it
Yeah.
because
So what does it mean to you now? How did you
oh,
make sense of it?
actually, it's not just sense, Sharon, our kids. So we raised both kids by saying, especially nine came first. So the son was first. So I have always raised him. We'll always love you, but I can kick your ass when you do a bad job.
Yeah.
So he was about 3 or 4 years old. And we moved no, yeah, he was about 3 years old because it was a year after we moved to this place. Our previous home hadn't sold. So the realtor showed up who was trying to sell the previous home. And she asked him, Nayan, are you a good boy? And I was about 20 feet away, so I could hear what he said. And I was stunned with his response positively. He said, I'm always a good boy, but sometimes I do a bad job.
I love it. Oh, that's wonderful.
There you go. I said, okay, mission
He,
accomplished.
he got it. He
Yeah.
just really got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three and a half. I don't think he was older. Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's that's really cute. Yeah.
So that's how I was able to use it later in life, that to separate behavior.
That
So
insight.
normally parents say good boy, bad boy, or good girl, bad girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they conflate
That's right. Right. And
person and behavior, right?
yeah.
And what I heard from that father, which was, profound, which was, I love my son, but hate his behavior.
Yes. That's very profound,
Yeah.
actually. And I think that if parents hold on to that with their children, it's very powerful for the kids because
Mm-hmm.
kids get mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
If they're getting the message that I hate you and your behavior, it's very
Mm-hmm.
deflating.
Yeah.
You know, parents feel like, I mean, kids sometimes feel like they can't please their parents and the parents don't love them, you
Right.
know?
Right. I mean, you're the psychologist, I'm not, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. However, I wanted to bring up the notion of unconditional love, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was how I felt you demonstrate unconditional love. So you can have unconditional love. That doesn't mean you accept everything they do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
And this doesn't
And
just, doesn't just apply to kids. It could be to
I was
friends.
going
It
to
could
say
be,
that
okay, okay, go ahead.
exactly. No, same thing. That it works with grown-ups as well.
Mm-hmm.
That you can love somebody, a friend, a partner, a family member, and yet really not like something that they do or that they, some behavior. You now. It's interesting because right now in this very polarized time, that's getting in the way in families a lot. They don't know how to deal with this. How do you keep loving somebody
Yeah.
with that unconditional love when you can't stand their behavior?
Yeah. Or their opinion.
Or their opinion.
In this case, it's not even their behavior; it's
Right.
their belief, or it's their perspective of whatever
Right.
it is. And because they don't think like you, or they don't believe in what you do,
Yeah.
then that causes conflict. I think
Right.
if we can separate behavior and who the person is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I actually, Sangeeta has said sometimes, how can you like that person? You said so many things about them. I said, no, I'm just commenting on behavior. I love the
Uh-huh.
person, right?
Uh-huh.
So I can
Yeah.
spend time with that person, but I can also comment on something they do that I don't
That you
appreciate.
don't like. Yeah. An example of this that goes extreme, and it's in my mind because I just have been working with somebody where this is in their lives, is in the world of alcoholism or addiction. When there's somebody married to an alcoholic or an addict, and they get to the point where they really can't tolerate it, there's a thing called an intervention. You probably know about this. And interventionists who are well trained really know how to make the intervention based in love. So what you do is you get people, family members usually, or best friends, who really love this person, care about them deeply, to tell them how much they love them and that they cannot stand this behavior. And in fact, they're going to leave or whatever, in this case, that's what the wife was ready to say. And they use it as a way to help somebody face their own reality and get help when they've just not been able to see that. But it's through the avenue of that unconditional love. I've never known it to work trying to talk somebody into it. It's not, you can't logic your way through it,
Yep. I
Yeah.
hear you loud and clear. In fact, I just recall the support group that I had that profound, I heard that profound insight or experience that was Codependents Anonymous.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you doing there?
Well, I was dating a psychologist, so I got educated on a bunch of things.
That's wonderful. This is the Krishna I know. That's very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
go ahead.
I want to tell you one more thing that is, you did name this as my favorite subject, but there's a thing I personally find really helpful, and that is if I'm having a feeling, kind of a negative feeling towards somebody, or I don't even know it, maybe I haven't noticed quite what's going on. If I find myself justifying myself, that's a red flag for me.
Got it.
Then I'm sort of saying, I'm right and that person's wrong here, or I'm, I'm judging in some way, and I don't want to really see their humanity. I'm not looking at the wholeness of them. I'm kind of writing them off in some way. And when that happens, I've learned to really take a step back and kind of recover myself and look at them again. And you know the Arbinger material, which I love, and it says that there are.
But I know that, but maybe you can just define it
Oh,
a
sure.
little. Yeah.
Sure. The Arbinger Institute has written many books, and they're widely used in business and for personal use too. And really, it's based on this idea that you see a person as a person,
And not an
not
object.
as an object, right? And the thing I was going to tell you is there are 3 ways Arbinger spells out that you can see a person as an object. So let me just say them, because to
Please.
me, when I learned these, they were very helpful. The first is as an obstacle. So somebody's in my way. I'm not seeming to be able to get what I want because of them. So then I objectify them. I see them as an obstacle. The second one is a vehicle. So I see them as somebody who might be able to help me. So I'm not really treating them as a full person. They're just a vehicle for me. And the third one is kind of subtle, but I think also kind of devastating. It's as a irrelevancy. I see them as irrelevant.
Wow.
Now, have you ever been seen as irrelevant?
Have I felt being irrelevant?
Yeah, that somebody's looking at you and is not seeing you fully as a person. They're kind of dismissing you.
I think so, but I don't know. I can't recall when, but I know I felt it.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling. It's like, when I worked in in an organization, in a lot of groups, this is going to date me, but also be familiar to you. I was in a lot of meetings with all men and me. Okay. And sometimes I felt like just raising my hand and waving and saying, I have an idea. And then some man would say the same idea I said, and people would respond. It felt like, it did feel like I was invisible and irrelevant.
Yes.
And it's a very powerless kind of feeling. It's you don't know what to do, Yeah.
I get it. Now I recall where I felt invisible. It's in India, because there's so many people and you're standing there and no, they can't see you.
That's probably true. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just another figure,
Yeah.
And because of the onslaught, it's
so
almost
many.
like a 10x, right?
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah, you would feel like an irrelevancy there. How do you? Yeah.
Here, I remember when I came to the US in '84, the first thing, everybody who you see on the street says hello. I was shocked. Whether they mean it or not is a separate equation.
But that's very interesting that was kind of shocking, huh?
Yeah, because that didn't happen there. People just walk by you. There's no eye contact. There's nothing. Everybody's going. It's just a truly mass transit.
Yeah. I can see how that would. I have not been to India, but I've seen pictures, and I can see how that certainly would feel like that.
I now get it. Yeah, and even when I went back many times for visits, when you're standing somebody and somebody cuts the line and gets in front of you, it's like, did you see I'm standing here, kind of thing?
No, didn't see you at all. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
It's not in terms of talking. It's more in terms of even seeing that they don't even see you as an object, I guess.
Which is even worse, right? So irrelevant that you're invisible. You're nothing.
Exactly.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, at least an obstacle would mean you would kind of watch out, right? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's a
That's funny.
truly, truly, and they're there. So I think life is so difficult in at least those times that in your zest to get to where you want to go or do what you want to do or get your ration or get your 2 pounds of rice, you're just going to the counter in a beeline and nothing
And the
will
people
stop
are
you.
not people.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Right.
Yeah. So back to relationships.
Yeah.
Why is the topic of relationships your favorite topic?
I think because I think they're so important.
So maybe what I should do is, what do you do? I mean, obviously you've done so many things in your life. I haven't ever kept track of all of it. So I'm actually going to ask you all the significant things you have done. I know you've been in variety of spaces. So maybe a quick history.
You mean in terms of my work history?
Yes.
That's okay. Well, I was first a therapist
Mhm.
for 5 years, and then I became a clinical director of a drug and alcohol treatment system. And then I was that for 10 years. And then when that system grew to include outpatient clinics and so forth, I became the vice president of treatment programs for
Mhm.
another 10 years.
Got it.
And then I left that and became, before all of that, I taught at Duquesne University. So, I mean, I came from that.
And what did you teach, Sharon?
I taught introductory psychology. I was
Got it.
just doing my own graduate work at the time, and
Got it. Got
they
it.
let me teach there. But and then I trained as a coach,
Mhm.
and I joined Hal, whom you know. He had a company which was a training company, really.
Hope Unlimited.
Hope Unlimited, that's right. And he was a great public speaker. So he went all over the country giving talks and helping people understand their brains better
Mhm.
and how that could help them lead better and be in relationship at work better.
Mhm.
And it was very, very profound stuff.
Mhm.
And then when I married him, I trained as a coach and added coaching onto his training
Got it.
because, as you know, lots of times training can be motivating and energizing, but not sustainable. And I sort of provided the ongoing
Ongoing. Yeah.
coaching to help implement and integrate it into their lives. So I did that, and he died 8 years ago, and I uh, formed a company, another company. I still have Hope Unlimited, but I formed a company called Two Wise Women
Women. Yeah.
with Nancy Smith, and she and I do both training and coaching. And we also have written a book. I've written 3 books actually, and so I don't know. I've written a blog for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of things, and I'm a mother and a stepmother and a grandma and a great grandma.
Absolutely fabulous. And all this, if you add up, it adds to how many years? 40 plus?
40 plus. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That's
So,
why I thought you were 45 years old, but then you
yeah, yeah.
started when you were a baby. Okay. I stand
I did
corrected.
start when I was a baby.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
got it.
exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So given that level of experience in so many different settings,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see relationships? I mean, not the Harvard study is one data
Yeah.
point, but Sharon's viewpoint, given all this rich experience, what would you say?
I would say that most of the people whom I have coached, if they can get their relationships right,
Wow.
the rest of their lives fall together well. And they may come to me for something totally different. But when we peel it back, almost always there's some relationship issue. Now, I'll tell you a funny thing. People in work relationships, they think it's that they want to know how to strategize better, and maybe they need that. I'm not against that. But the thing is that if they work out the relationships at work, it's like the strategizing gets easier.
Beautiful.
And on the downside, if there's a relationship at work or at home that's not working well, it drains your energy.
Brilliant, brilliant. So it's very interesting. You know how much I like acronyms, right? Pig, ape. And
Yes.
last year or 2 years ago, I came up with a new one. It's called Eat Well. Eat,
Oh,
EAT.
okay. Tell me. I don't know this one. I love it.
Yeah, eat. And I always say when I'm done, if you put on weight, don't blame me because EAT stands for energy, attention, and time in that order. Because
Wow.
not most people, especially the productivity and efficiency folks, look and
Start with time first.
start with time. And I tell them, if you wake up with low energy
Yeah.
and you have a full calendar, how do you think that day is going to go for you?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
brilliant. I love that you put energy first. Yeah.
Energy, then attention. If you're
Mm-hmm.
distracted because your child is in the hospital or your
Right.
mother needs help,
That's
your
right.
mind is not present.
That's right.
You may have the energy, but no attention. So, what good is giving time?
Yeah.
So, if you don't get your E and A, don't bother spending the time.
That's really good. I'm glad you came up with that. That's good. Are you going to write a book about it? This is
Not a book. I just use it as one of the things I talk about
that's
in my
cool.
workshops,
Okay.
especially in self awareness,
Yeah.
because energy is what you start the day with. Because,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Yeah.
and that's where I realized relationship tie, and you said it, relationship ties to energy.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
you're having poor relationships, whether at home or at work, it is draining that energy. And, hunger, and always compare it to hunger. Hunger is something you feel very clearly.
Yeah.
And I call it, we have gauges. I always compare things to physical metaphors. So if
Yeah.
you look at a
To the
car,
gauges.
you
Uh-huh.
have a gas gauge and it turns yellow, and then you need to fill gas.
Right.
And you feel hunger very well. And hunger, actually, I don't know if I've told you, you have audible alert when you get too hungry. It's called growling.
I know it, although I don't get there too often because
Yeah.
I eat pretty regularly. But yeah.
So hunger has gauges and
Uh-huh.
alerts.
Yeah.
Energy does not, attention does not. Time, you have a calendar to monitor time. So you have a gauge
Yeah.
for you have a gauge for hunger, you have a gauge for time, but you don't have a gauge for energy, and you have absolutely no idea about attention. And that's why distraction and social media and everything else and the gadgetry that we deal with is completely hijacking our
That's
lives.
really that's really good. Let me go back. That's really interesting. So the drain of energy starts, and part of the reason you wake up in the morning without a lot of it is that relationship difficulties interrupt sleep.
That's right.
They they are given more than any other reason for what do you wake up at night thinking about and trying to solve and you can't figure it out. It's some relationship issue, either with a family member or work, usually.
Interesting, Sharon. I was not aware of it. I always thought, okay, it's nutrition, it's rest, it's mind state. I had not included the variable of relationships into quality of sleep. That is pretty darn cool
So
because,
think about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And people ask people, that's, I mean, I didn't make this up.
Oh,
People
no,
tell
no.
it to me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
But I think also the attention, the part about attention really affects relationships as well. I can't tell you how many people say to me when we're working on relationships, how do I get my spouse, my child, anybody to put their phones down to, to have a conversation with me?
mhm.
Because a lot of people in this day and age say, oh, just keep talking. I can watch my phone and talk to you, right?
Not in my house.
Yeah, well, I'm glad.
Yeah. In fact, not just while talking, because of my practice in mindfulness and so on, that's pretty much the Achilles heel of mindfulness, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you
for
do
sure.
trying to do two things, so I say, if you want to watch a movie, watch the movie. I mean, it doesn't have to
Exactly.
be serious stuff. Don't look at Facebook, your laptop, and the movie, because
Mm-hmm.
then you're not enjoying any of them.
Right,
You just
right.
think you are and kidding yourself. When
Yeah,
you eat, eat.
yeah,
When you watch even when a football game, I mean, yes, maybe you can snack a little bit, but the key
yeah,
idea is to pay attention because that's what tunes you or attention
yes,
muscle, right?
yes.
If you
And
practice distraction, you are distracted.
and that attunement is at the heart of good relationships.
Mm,
That attention, which tunes into kind of literally attunement. The electromagnetic fields between me and you are actually going when I'm giving you my full attention, and they're not connecting when I'm looking on my device. You know,
it's actually even more interesting. Even if you're not looking at a device and you're not making good eye contact, I think there's a significant loss in my experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Because so there are people who, like I've had situations where people are looking somewhere, not doing anything else.
That's awful when you do that just now to me, even. Yeah, I want to say, wait, come back here to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was not looking at anything. I just was looking off camera. And that's why, I mean, you know, I've been running a virtual academy since 2014. And that's the first thing I train speakers.
Uh-huh.
Please look into the eyes of your audience, because especially when you're not there, and and even many people, especially intellectuals, when asked a question,
they go do that to think. Yeah, that's right.
And not doesn't work in a virtual environment, because taking your eyes off the person really makes them feel you are not there for them.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a little exercise I want to give you. Are you willing?
Yes, ma'am.
This is about relationships.
Yes,
okay.
That's the topic.
Okay, so I want you to think of 3 people that you have relationships with that you wish they would get a little better.
Uh-oh, I thought you were going to ask me people I love, and now you
well,
just tricked me.
No, this is going to be tricky. I know about the people you love, and you love well. So this is about people who trouble you a bit.
Okay.
You got them?
No. I just started with one.
Okay.
I'm glad that it's taking me time.
That is good.
That is a blessed
really
situation. Good. Okay. All right. I don't have 3 yet. Okay. 1,
Do you
2.
Have 2?
2, yes.
Okay, 2 is enough. I'm going to let you quit there. Just keep your 2. Now, here's the question I want to ask you, and I want you to take it really seriously. How do you cause trouble for them? You don't have to answer me. I just want you to think about it.
How do I cause?
How might you cause trouble for them?
Got it. I'm happy to even talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
So I bet most of my conflict anywhere is based on sharing my perspective, and they don't buy into it.
Okay.
That's where it starts.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where I cause the trouble, because their belief system has put them in a certain comfort zone.
Yes.
Because beliefs are, we have beliefs so that it helps us live our lives, make sense of the world. So when I put an alternate perspective, and if it is conflicting with theirs, now it causes some dissonance, right?
Right.
So that's usually my starting off.
So they're having trouble with you in a way. They're not agreeing with your perspective, and then you're having trouble with them in a way because
I expect it.
But you've come to expect it. Okay.
Yeah, because you know me for what now, 20 years. So you know me that you know that I can say things and present things that are not the norm.
Yeah. So okay.
So therefore now I expect it, and so I'm not in the before. Now when you expect that to have it, it does not that shocking.
Then it doesn't trouble you so much. Yeah. Okay, well then that's really good. That's the part that a lot of people find is that they've not ever thought about that. How do I trouble other people? They only think about how do other people trouble me. I mean, because your far out ideas, and I don't think they're that far out, but your ideas that are a little different may really be troublesome to somebody. They think, what is that? I can't buy into that, right? Yeah.
I mean, it could be something about my belief in performance of children.
Yes.
And they may believe children have to perform or else.
Yeah.
And I might come from the opposite angle. As long as they put in the effort, I don't care about the performance.
Yeah.
Right? The score is not what matters. It is the discipline and the effort and the practice.
Yeah.
because in the long game, so to speak, that's what matters. It's not the score.
Right. Right. But do you try to change their mind?
I used to. Now
Mhm.
I know you're not going to succeed, and it's going to be
That's the part. Yeah.
a lot of work. But I believe in what I call a three call close.
Yeah.
Drop the idea and run fast.
Well, or I mean, I think that you're right. It's fine not to give up, just to even hope that if you can do it without a lot of anger, because that just provokes defensiveness, and then
Yes.
there's not going to be any
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
But if you can continue to love them, as it were, if you continue to see them as a person
Mhm.
and demonstrate in some ways how what you believe has worked for you or has worked for a lot of people, then there's some chance, I think,
Yeah.
that people's view might be changed.
So my
Uh,
three call closes, if I'm like you called it far out idea, let's call it far out. So let's say crazy idea or whatever. I drop it and then move on. Just
okay.
introduce it. Don't
Yeah.
try to convince. Then give them the time and space to process it.
Hmm.
And then bring it up again
Yeah.
and then drop it again.
Uh huh.
And third time, wait till they bring it up.
That's a good, you know what? That's a very good coaching technique. That's really very good. And it's respectful.
Mhm.
And I think you got it. I like that. The three, what do you call it? The
Three call close. As
three
opposed to
call close.
in sales, everybody wants to close people,
That's
right?
right.
So
So the three call close is very different. I like it. Very good.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
really yeah, and I use that in my coaching of especially higher level executives who are trying to convince the CEO,
Hmm.
and they run into it all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
Because the CEOs usually are strong-willed people.
Yeah. Right.
They have an opinion,
Yeah.
right? And usually they're not democratic.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
they have a strong perspective and a strong
Yeah.
opinion, and that's they run the show. So how do you, if you have a good idea, how do you then get some? How do you make it get some legs, or even the attention it deserves?
Yeah.
Because if you try to go convince that I have a great idea, that's not going to fly.
Forget it. It's never going to work. No, no. But you know, one of the things that can help, and I've done this with a number of executives, is help them learn to be listeners,
Hmm.
because they're strong usually, and they have a lot of opinions, and they get some of their sense of themselves from being an answer man often,
Yeah,
and learning to listen and um, hear better
yeah,
where people are coming from actually improves them as
absolutely.
leaders.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're amazed. I mean, I've had people say to me, I'm amazed at how smart that guy is.
Hmm.
Oh, he was always smart. You just didn't listen, you
Yeah.
know?
Actually, I'm
Oh,
glad you brought that up. So I'm actually talking about the layer beneath the big boss.
okay.
Those people, many of them have great ideas.
Yeah.
And if they try to go for a one call close, they will get shot down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you split it and then try this approach, and I've tried it successfully myself,
So you
and
teach people how to do your three call close. I love that. That's
right,
great.
and
Yeah.
it works many times if your idea is actually good. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Then another thing with adolescents, back to relationships, when two people, usually parent and an adolescent child, will have diametrically opposite perspectives on the same thing.
Yep.
A typical reaction, I'm not even calling it a response, a typical reaction is to tell them why you're right.
Hmm.
And do you remember my story, The Bird and the Fish?
No, tell me.
So in the book, Beyond the Pig and the Ape,
I will remember it. Yeah.
right, there's a argument, there's a story I fabricated. All the remaining stories in my book are true except this one. This one
Okay.
is one I fabricated to make this point. It's an argument between bird and a fish about what a boat looks like. And the two shall
What a boat looks like. Okay.
and the two shall never agree.
Sure.
But Nayan one day said, unless you have a flying fish and a diving bird, which is also true. This is what happened.
Nyan would say that. I love Nyan. That's so cute.
So I said, okay, barring a smart ass son's comment, what the most likely it'll end up in a bad argument. And I ask all my CEOs and key executives and emerging leaders I do my workshops with this question: who's right? And Sharon, before I finish my question, they'll come up with the right answer, both.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, now, if I replace the bird and the fish with two human beings, would you come to that same conclusion as quickly?
Good for you. Yeah.
And then there is a pause.
Right.
And I say, why?
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay. And then I have some people who are very attuned who will say, if it's exactly the same situation, replace the bird, then yes. If one person was underwater and another person was
One's
in
in
the
the
air,
air. Uh-huh.
maybe, but that's not what we are. We're usually in the same room, around a table, in a, cubicle, whatever. So, and then I like the word earlier when you said there is something underneath, right? And that's the conversation. What's underneath that
Mm-hmm.
makes us not want to say both are right?
Mm-hmm.
And I push them. And I put words in their mouth, and this is the words I put. If Sharon is right, or if she's right, I must be
wrong. Yeah.
See, I didn't even tell you that. You filled
Right.
the words, but that's the belief.
Right.
If you are operating with that hidden belief,
Yeah.
no wonder anytime somebody disagrees with you, you're going to dig your heels.
That's right, because you've set it up as a right wrong from the
Yes.
beginning, and you don't want to be wrong, right?
So now you and I haven't done this exercise because this is we haven't really talked too much in the past few years. So there's something beneath that. What do you think that is?
um, well,
If she is right, I must be wrong, which means what? There's another belief beneath it.
somebody wins, somebody loses.
There's only one right answer.
Oh, there's only one. Yeah, that's what I was thinking that when you were talking about the fish and the bird, because
Yeah.
why can't there be more than one right answer? Yeah.
And the third one, which is the most, I would say, the deepest of all, is, and I'm the only one who has it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So there are three beliefs in this simple story or a simple example. When we disagree with somebody, there are three beliefs.
Yeah.
If she's right, I must be wrong, which means there's only one right answer, and I'm the one with it.
Mm-hmm.
Those set of beliefs are are invisible to us until we go through this exercise.
That's right.
And then you're relieved. When you start thinking there can be more than one right answer, imagine now your adolescent child comes and gives you this, what you think is a cockamamie perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start with, there could be multiple answers, what do? You get curious. Tell me more.
That's beautiful. That has such huge implications for relationship, Krishna,
And
when you speak of it. It's huge.
Yeah.
Because I think I really love that story for the way it illustrates that sort of binary thinking,
Yes.
the black and white. There's like this right, wrong, this or this. They can't both be true kind of thing. Or
So now, when you get curious, what do? You give them permission to share their perspective. You validate them. Then their guard comes down, because when you argue, you are now into fight.
Guard goes up. Yeah.
Right. This one comes down, and you might get a kick out of this. I have found as they start explaining, they may find some loopholes in their logic.
In their own logic. Mm-hmm.
And
because you've gotten curious.
Yes. And by allowing them to speak it out, I've had situations with my kids where they will stop midway and say, oh, I forgot about this. And it resolves itself without that conflict.
That's beautiful.
And so I've tried that a lot, but it's not easy because you get triggered. Right?
Yeah.
So you get triggered. So it's not like I mastered it, but I know at least cognitively what to do.
I like it.
Now you got to keep practicing is get curious when you get triggered rather than defend.
That's such a good mantra. Get curious when you get triggered. Get curious.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
So that's something that I've really enjoyed because and when I get triggered, I know what happens. My mouth goes dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is managing your sensations, and so there again gauges.
Well, and you become a self-observer, which is so important, right? So are you triggered right now? Your mouth went dry. Yeah.
Because I'm talking too much.
I'm kidding you. But I think you hit on a really important part that comes back to what I said in the beginning, that we can only change ourselves in relationship. And that requires that we become pretty good observers of ourselves. That instead of acting automatically, which is what we usually do, that we become more mindful, that we almost see a movie of ourselves and see ourselves getting triggered. And
you're monitoring your behavior and the layers beneath that trigger the actions that you take. And it is pretty amazing how having this binary. And hey, I want to get some feedback from you. I made up this story, okay? And since you're a psychologist, I wanted to see if there's any validity. I think this whole binary thing starts early in childhood, because some parenting coach told the parent, you don't want to have a big argument in the morning, so why don't you give them a choice, cornflakes or Cheerios, and let them pick one, which makes them believe that they have the power to choose.
I don't know about that. That's weird.
I'll continue.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the child has a fake sense of power because they chose something, and it usually works. But then look at what happens a little bit later: chocolate or vanilla, which is your book. But yours is chocolate or lunch, right?
But still,
right. But chocolate or vanilla, it's always an or.
Binary, this or this.
Yeah, we've been conditioned to a binary. And when we used to have the tennis banquets, they always had this double sheet cake, half vanilla, half chocolate, and they would cut it exactly in the middle, and the waitress or waiter would come to your table and offer chocolate or vanilla.
One or the other.
And I wanted to say, why can't you cut one row, which is either side of half chocolate or vanilla? They won't do it. Can you? I mean, just think about it. Just think about things in the past. We are conditioned to binary, not an and.
You're right. The this or that, this or that, this or that.
And I think it starts from
it does start early. I think you're probably right. Very interesting.
So, I mean, I am smiling because this is not scientific study. It's just an opinion, but I just was curious what you thought about that.
Well, I hadn't thought about it exactly that way, but you may be absolutely onto something. Yeah, I think that there must be lots and lots of early experiences that we have that we experience as binary choices, because that comes with us so clearly into our adulthood, where we think that way.
It's a conditioned habit, and then
we forget that thing that you can have more than one.
Back to more than one. Exactly. This, if you are right, I must be wrong. Why can't you be right and I also be right?
Right.
And why can't we add the two and make something even better?
Right.
I think that's what's missing in relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, back to relationships, right? I mean, what you say is also true. What I'm saying is true, and maybe 3 other people are also true.
Well, which takes me to this maybe last story I want to tell, which is that many times in marriages or partnerships between two people, if they are very, very different from each other, they think differently, they come at things differently, it's sometimes a really impossible situation. They don't get past it. I think it's one reason we have so many divorces. They just see how different they are, and then they get divorced, right? The part that's amazing to me, and this is true if you talk to people who've been married for a long, long time, very often, if they're very different, but they value those differences, the gifts that each brings, and they learn to appreciate and use them, it's like they bring a richness to the relationship that makes it much better than if they had been the same.
Yes,
right?
Because then it's redundant.
Redundant, yeah.
I truly appreciate you bringing that, and we'll end on that high note. It is valuing and respect, right? It is value and respect for the differences, because diversity again, that word has been, in my opinion, bastardized to thinking about ethnic diversity or geographic diversity or gender diversity. It's really diversity in perspective and thought.
Right. I think it really is.
And that we assume comes from that by doing the other thing, by doing gender and ethnicity and so on, which is also true. But you want to make sure there is diverse perspectives that comes to the table.
Right.
And I didn't realize we were supposed to talk for 30 minutes and we're almost at the
Well,
hour.
we have fun talking, so edit
So
it.
so what I want to do, no editing. This is a chat, right? Because there's nothing, we just sharing whatever
Okay.
we're talking. So what we'll do is maybe next time we'll talk about relationships with things. For example, you know about my construct of life spaces, right?
Yes.
We live in, all of us inhabit at least 6 life spaces: yourself, your partner, your friends and community, your work, which is a
Uh-huh.
thing, which is, and your money is another
Money.
big thing.
Mhm.
Relationship with money is a big thing, and relationship with kids. So kids, friends, partner are people, and
Yeah.
work colleagues, but also relationship with yourself. That's an
Yeah.
interesting one. So maybe we will.
I'm on. I'm on board. Like,
So that'll
I
be the
love these
focus of our
conversations.
next conversation, which is, will stay with relationships and go on to those three and think about, to share about what we can come up from there.
What, okay, Krishna, what a delight it always is to talk to you. We could talk forever, huh?
Well, I think we will bore other people, so I think we should stop.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.
This is Krishna Pendyala wishing you all well and reminding you to always be open to new perspectives. Take care.